Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some PathOfExile discussion. This is going to be a crafting video, and I'm going to show you how to craft yourself an item that is a meaningful upgrade on a tabula rasa. So this will not necessarily be the first chess piece you use in mappings, but it will be something that you can use on a low budget while you're working your way up to getting, say, your first 2 void stones out of the way. Maybe it'll be good enough to carry you through the 3rd and 4th, Uber Elder and the Maven as well. So what we're going to do is we're searching explicitly for a few criteria. Firstly, it needs to be a body armor. Secondly, non-unique. Non-unique because there's a number of mechanics that will drop unique body armors, and we're looking for things we can craft on. Next, at least 2 of the base defenses, 1 or above. The reason for this is chromatic orbs. There is a bias against chromatic orbs rolling anything that the item has a 0 stat requirement of. So for example, if an item has a dexterity requirement of 100, a strength requirement of 100, and an intelligence requirement of 0, i.e. no intelligence requirement, there is a really strong bias against it rolling blue sockets. Usually this is workable, especially with the ability to force 1 blue socket onto an item. It's a lot harder when you have a very strong bias towards getting only 1 particular color of socket. So whilst there are builds that can want 5 green, 1 red, this is a pretty rare setup, and that means that pure evasion chess pieces are going to be harder to chrome. When you get something that's actually your forever gear, it's worth going through that ordeal, but when it's not your forever gear, when it's a stepping stone to something better, you don't want to do that. You want something that's easy to chrome. So here with evasion and energy shield, what I'm forcing here is that this will be something that will be favored towards blue and green sockets. You'll be able to get up to 1 red socket on it easily, but getting 2 or more is going to be somewhat expensive potentially. Next, we have 6 links. Next, we have an item level of 82. I'm picking that somewhat arbitrarily. Archnemesis monsters drop a lot of 6 links, and a lot of the ones that you find will be item level 85 as more and more players start getting into red maps. A lot of players, though, will discount items that are below 85, and that can be useful to you. Next, it's got to be non-corrupted, non-mirrored, and we're keeping our price limit to 20C. So I've done a search here, and you'll see a bunch of them. Don't bother with the first one. It's almost always someone that is trolling you. Okay, so just pause the video in order to pick up some other supplies that I was going to need. I spent 36 Chaos picking up Deafening Essences of Greed. Grand Eldritch Embers cost me 30C for 10, and Grand Eldritch Ichors cost me 42C for 15 of them. We're going to be using these, and we may also end up using Exalted Orbs and Benchcrafts depending on how we go. So all we're going to be doing is starting these off with a Deafening Essence of Greed. That forces a good tier life roll on the items, and is a good starting point. If we get absolute and utter rubbish, we're going to roll over it, but our standards are not very high here. So you see we've got 120 to 126 life, and everything else on this is terrible. This is the sort that we roll over. This one's got a double life roll, it's got physical damage reduction. It doesn't have any resists on it, but we can benchcraft something. This is good enough for someone to use early. It's not forever gear, but it is starter gear. So we're not going to roll over this, we're just going to move on. Next, we've hit a strength roll and a life roll. The other stats on this are rubbish, but they're still useful potentially to someone. Someone might need a little bit of dexterity. Unfortunately, with this not having a suffix free for a resist, it's a little bit less likely to sell. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a risky annul at this. If this annuls off the strength or the life, then it's over. Alternately, we could potentially annul one of the others. And we annulled off the strength. So that's now rubbish. We'll start over. That's a lot more like it. 2 resistances. This has got 6 mods on it already, but it's got a second life roll as well. So this one's really good. This is going to be at the higher end price-wise of what we're selling. This will probably go in the 100C tab. This one here, we're going to hit with our first essence. We've got a double life roll with space to benchcraft or resist. That's fine. This one here has a good stat and 2 bad resists on it. This is another one that you could conceivably do a risky annul on. If you hit one of the bad resists, then benchcraft a better one. That would be something that would be quite strong. Alternately, this is probably okay as it is. We can then just benchcraft something on it. I'm going to leave this as is, and it'll probably end up in the 69C tab rather than the 100C tab. And this one here, we're going to hit with this and get absolutely nothing. So we're going to re-roll it. And that's got spell suppression on it, so we're going to keep that as is. Now it's as simple as just placing Grand Embers and Grand Ichors on these items until we think that it's not necessarily perfect for someone, but good enough to be meaningfully better than not having an implicit. Flesh and Stone area of effect is extraordinarily niche. We're not going to keep that. 2% max fire resist is great. That's something that someone will be happy to see. Non-curse auras is excellent. This is the best mod you can get, and it's on a good base. This is now going to be more than 100C. This will probably be in the 1 divine, maybe even 2 divine range. Conditional cold resistance is a bit weaker, but it's still okay. We're going to keep that. I'm not going to roll over it. Conditional cold damage is a lot less useful. I'm just trying to think if I can see anyone with these colors using a cold skill. I don't think I really can, so I might just... No, I'm going to leave that for now. Someone might want it. And here we've got conditional maximum lightning resist, which is at the weaker end, but it's not terrible either. It does something useful. And then we're going to put an Ichor on each of them. So Purity of Ice conditional. Someone might want that mod, but they're not going to be the same person that wants the lightning resistance mod. That said, I'm going to leave this as is for the moment. This will help someone that's trying to get down Eater of Worlds or Uber Elder, provide a little bit of extra defense on them. So I'm going to leave that as is. 7% spell block is really quite good, and that's something that someone might actually be keen to use for a while. It's a pity it's not on one of the items that has better other mods. Melee hits have a chance to fortify is niche. Not many people playing melee for some funny reason, but it is still very, very good, and so we're going to keep that. Minions take reduced reflected damage. This is kind of really bad, this mod. It does something genuinely useful, but you tend to need too much of it for people to usually bother with it. So I'm going to roll over that. Conditional energy shield recovery on a non-energy shield armor piece is just trash. Melee hits have a chance to fortify is potentially quite good. We're going to keep that one. Next, we've got this fire resistance and otherwise bad. Conditional evasion rating on a piece of armor that doesn't have evasion is rubbish. We'll roll over it. 1% less damage taken per 210 intelligence doesn't do nothing, but it's not very good. This is something that's very, very niche, and I don't see many people wanting it. And the people that want it are going to want to have tier 1 intelligence on their gear, and so for that reason, I'm going to roll over that. Conditional fortify on unique enemies is really probably a lot worse than the unconditional fortifies. Conditional evasion rating is really bad again. Reflect mitigation, terrible. 21% increased armor does something. It's not great, but it does something. We're going to keep that. And so this is now what we've got. Remember, we're not necessarily trying to make anything amazing. So what have we spent here? I spent about 55 chaos picking up the bases. That's already 6 linked. So that was 55C. I spent those essences. That was 32. That was 87C that we've spent. I spent some scouring orbs and some armor scraps off stream. We'll call that 1C, so we're up to 88. I spent 6 of these. I spent 12 of these. So we're looking about 140C to craft all of these. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put them up for sale. This was miles better, so it's going at a higher price. The rest are all lower price. So we're just going to throw these into our low to medium sell price tab, and then we'll put this one into the higher tab and see what happens. When I've been doing this in the past, I have definitely been selling some. So this is something that can craft you an item to use or also craft something to sell to other people. The other thing you should factor in is that you can potentially chrome these pretty easily. And if there's meta colors that you want to try and chase, then you can definitely chase those down. Anyways, that's all I've got for the Trade League side of things. Let's just quickly talk how you'd modify this for SSF. In SSF, you're going to get a lot less 6 links. You won't have the ability to just go and buy 6 links off other players like I did here. But there's a couple of things you can do to target them. You can target farm the divination card, the Chains That Bind, and there's a couple of other options as well. Dapper Prodigy for one. The Chains That Bind is not very rare. You can certainly self-compile 3 or 4 sets of that if you're a bit determined. Once you've done that, you'll hopefully, one of your turn-ins will be colors that you can use or will be easily chromed into colors you can use. Then you can go ahead and follow exactly the same process. If you do find yourself in a situation where you just cannot get the colors you can use, you have the option of using the Benchcraft that corrupts an item and makes it 30% quality, and then using Tainted Chromatics on it. Tainted Chromatics don't respect the usual biases, and then once you've done that, you can Tainted Chrome it and hope that you get the colors that you can use. There's no guarantees with Tainted Chromes. You can sometimes need quite a few of them, and they aren't very common, so it is a last resort to do that. Ultimately, you may find that it's better just compiling more sets of the Divination card and turning them in. Also, check out other things that will drop various 6 links. Ritual drops 6 links a fair bit. Ritual will drop 6 links that are craftable a fair bit. Heist, in particular, drops a lot of them in Enchanted Armaments Heists, and so you'll have a bunch of options there. And also in Solo Self-Found, you might need to downgrade from using Deafening Essences of Greed to using Shrieking Essences of Greed. Even if you've got an essence set up on your tree, you probably aren't that far in progression at the point that you're using this, and as a result, you may not have a lot of Deafening Essences. So in that situation, just use Shrieking ones. Yes, the outcome will be worse, but it won't be massively worse. That's all I've got. May your Valobs have interesting results.